Is the housing market going to crash in 2023? Well, people are asking me that all the time. Hi, I'm Diana Benson with eXp Realty and The Great Escape, where we help people move to and around Arizona. So, is the Arizona housing market going to crash in 2023? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. We need to stop reading the headlines and see what the data tells us. The most important data is the labor and employment numbers, the interest rates, inventory, and appreciation or depreciation. But now the appreciation and depreciation tells us what has happened looking backwards. The inventory, interest rates, and employment tells us what's most likely to happen moving forward. So today, as of this taping, on December 30th, 2022, the 30-year fixed rate is 6.5%, which is down 0.04% from yesterday. At about 5%, most buyers jump back into the market. Investors are waiting to see where the next round of inflation data comes in and the Federal Reserve's response to that data. So, what do the experts predict for the interest rates? Well, HSH.com predicts that rates will peak at the beginning of the year, then flatten out ranging from 6.5% to 7.5%. ATTOM executive president predicts that the Fed's actions will slow down inflation and that rates will go down to 5.5 to 6% by the end of 2023. He also stated that this is the best case scenario. Now, Zillow's Jeff Tucker thinks that if inflation starts cooling down and the Fed slow down their monetary policy, that rates will stay about 6.5 to 7.5% for 2023. But that's a lot of ifs. And the Mortgage Bankers Association predicts an average of 5.4% at the end of 2023, with volatile rates throughout the year. Now, National Association of Realtors Chief Economist Lawrence Young sees that the new normal for mortgage rates looks close to 7% for a 30-year fixed mortgage and 6% for those wanting to go for a 5-year ARM. But is that something that you should do? Well, if you're definitely going to be in your home for at least 5 years, then it might be a good solution. Otherwise, ARMs are always risky, especially in uncertain economic times. You have to always plan for the worst case scenario, not for what you're going to hope that's going to happen. So if you can't afford that payment once it increases to the maximum amount, you probably shouldn't do the ARM. Now, Freddie Mac estimates it to be about 6.4%. Fannie Mae estimates 6.8%, and Goldman Sachs is aiming a little bit lower at 6.2%. As you can see, the experts, if they're correct, we're most likely not going to see that 5% in 2023. And 5% is that rate where the market starts responding. However, with more time on the market, people kind of get over that sticker shock, and they get used to that new interest rate as long as the affordability is in line. Some buyers on the fence will re-enter the market. We will see what the first quarter brings us. One area that has pivoted quickly is new construction. The builders saw what the rates were doing to affordability and started offering buy downs, spending $10,000 to $30,000 to buy down that rate to 5%. This has kept the builders' sales alive, but they have pulled back on their building permits for homes in the new year, which means this is going to affect the supply next year. Now, payment versus prices. What does the buy down mean to your payment? Well, here's an example of the payment over the last year and a half. You're going to see that even though there's been an 11.5% decline in the average price over the last year, bringing it down to $415,000, which basically brings it back to December in 2021, where it was $419,000. The payments for a typical 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home in Phoenix in June 2021 was $1,558 for principal and interest. Now that same house in December 2022 is $2,729 a month. That's an increase in payment over $1,050 in that year and a half. The combination of the price increase and the interest rate increase completely changed the affordability, and that's what's currently affecting the market, affordability. You may be feeling sorry for those people that bought at the peak of the market in May of 2022 at $469,500, but their payment was $2,787, about the same as it is now. So as long as they're not going to sell for the next couple of years, they're in just fine shape. So what is affecting the interest rates for the inflation? Well, there are many things affecting the inflation right now, including the supply chain interruptions, the cheap money for the last couple of years, the government spending, the retail theft, and post-pandemic demand for items. Now, as interest rates increase, demand for housing decreases. This has affected the inflation in the housing market, as we've seen the decline in housing prices. But this has not yet affected other markets' products, as we've seen in the Consumer Price Index and the Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index. And this is what Jerome Powell uses to determine if he's going to increase the rates. Till he sees an inflation rate getting down to about 2%, he stated that he's going to continue to increase those rates. So we talked about interest rates and affordability. What about employment? Well, employment projections for Arizona long-term looks good. Arizona is known as a silicone desert, but in the short term, we're seeing some signs of weakening employment. The AZ unemployment has begun to rise in April from 3.2% to 3.9%. We have not seen the increase in unemployment in the United States yet, but per Time Magazine and the Market Watch, Intel stock has fallen more than 45% this year. It has had to start their layoffs. They offered some of their employees 3 months' pay to those willing to leave the company. ABC 15 stated that Intel moves forward the Chandler expansion despite these layoffs, and TSCM, the Taiwan chip maker that is spending $20 billion on their new plant, has started cutting spending by approximately 10%, including layoffs, due to this reduced demand in the chips globally. And most layoffs have been those people that are constructing the plant. Now, per Robert Kiyosaki, we have seen recent 401k withdrawals, which means that people are depleting their savings and starting to dip in their 401k savings. Just 2 years ago, we were at an all-time high of savings. This has been depleted quickly. Once assets deflate, people will start investing again. Now, what about inventory? We're talking about the basics here, supply and demand. What has been affecting inventory or supply? Well, first, people are sitting on 2.65% to 3.5% mortgages. They don't want to give that up for a 6.5% mortgage. As we talked about earlier about the difference in the payments on a $500,000 mortgage at principal and interest at 6.5% is $3,160 a month. At 3%, it's $2,108. That's over $1,050 difference. And if they bought that house a few years ago before prices skyrocketed, that home with a $500,000 mortgage is most likely a larger, more expensive home. So they would have to downgrade their home with a higher payment. This has stopped people from placing their home on the market and from them entering into the buying market. Now, some things adding to the supply of the market are the larger institutional buyers, or the iBuyers. They've slowed down their purchases and are liquidating their supply at lower than market prices. This is affecting pricing and adding to the supply. Now, as you can see, Open Door since April has flooded the market with homes, but those going under contract has not increased proportionally, and even though they are offering these homes at below market prices. Then there's the Airbnb properties. Many cities are adding regulations that make it more difficult and less profitable to have an Airbnb. Starting in 2023, you're going to need to fulfill the county, state, and city regulations in some cities. In Scottsdale, the annual license fee is $250 per property. A TPT from the Arizona Department of Revenue is required on each property. You must notify the neighbors that it's an Airbnb. It must be insured and registered with the county assessor and with the state. Converting these short-term rentals and adding to the rental supply, which has already increased by 192% since September of 2021. And some are selling, adding to the residential supply. Supply is one of the most important numbers to keep an eye on, and even more importantly is the speed in which the inventory is increasing. We've seen a large supply increase, but this has slowed down in the last few weeks, with supply declining again. In fact, we are back in a balanced market now. So has the median sales price been rising or declining? Well, prices have been declining. In fact, there's been a 12% decline since May. But as you can see, appreciation rates for 2 to 5 years are between 28 to 75%. And 65.5% of all the active listings on the market right now have owned their home for more than 2 years. Things have almost leveled off during the last couple of weeks. Does this mean we're at the bottom for this season, or the bottom? Well, we never know until we hit the bottom, until a few months later pass when we can take a look back. But I know I've seen recent higher pending sales, but I've also seen recently some lower active listings coming onto the market. Therefore, I'm guessing that it just kind of took a break and it might not be the bottom yet. Now, homes over $2 million are often purchased with cash. Therefore, the interest rates are not affecting this market in the same way. This segment of the market has not seen declines. In fact, it's actually still increasing, where homes under $2 million have seen mostly about a 12% decrease. The rental prices have also seen some declines, but have stabilized in November. So what to expect? We're going to see more seller paid concessions and more iBuyer listings entering the market. We will have to wait until the first quarter to see where the interest rates are headed. Typically, we see a large increase in the supply and demand after the first of the year, and I'm hoping that this year will be no different. But I'm expecting that there's going to be more listings or supply than demand due to the interest rates. This has been Diana Benson with A Great Escape, where we help people escape to their next chapter. If I can be of service, if you have any questions at all, please feel to reach out. All my information is listed below. Until next time.